Are we live?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for it to go up on YouTube. Be sure. We're good.
Call the meeting to order. This time we vote to go into closed session for discussion and/or action regarding those items of business exempt from open meetings under general laws of Rhode Island, 4246-5, A1, A2, A4, A8, and A9.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. We will return.
Hey, Tim, you still there?
Yeah.
Kenny, it's live. You're live, Ken.
Oh, okay, sorry.
keyboard is not set up right.
What's the problem?
It said yeah.
Good evening. Happy New Year to everyone. As soon as everyone gets back, we will start. Ms. Bonang, are we still live? We are, thank you. Okay. Welcome to the Warwick School Committee special virtual meeting of Thursday, January 7th, 2021. Pursuant to Executive Order Number 20-05, issued by the Governor of the State of Rhode Island, this meeting will be conducted by electronic communication only. Members of the public wishing to access this meeting may do so at https://YOU/BE:/2APERQZ/BQHE. This time I call the meeting to order and ask that everyone stand for the Pledge of the Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Be seated. This time I would ask for a motion to seal the minutes of executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. There were no votes taken in executive session this evening. At this time, we go to Ms. Bonang for public comment.
Madam Chair, before we do that, I would like to have a moment of silence due to the events that happened yesterday when our state U.S. Capitol was invaded by domestic terrorists. And I think in the moment of silence, we should think of democracy, the importance of democracy, the Constitution, and truth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Madam Chair, members of the school committee, I have some public comments for you this evening. My first is from Heidi Collado. I am sure your mailbox is flooding with emails, and I hope you are able to read mine. I am sure you have heard many stories from families, all very similar. I have been a resident of Warwick all my life, and I am now raising my children in Warwick. We all should have a choice if we want to send our children to in-person learning. Many of the other districts are allowing families to have a choice. I am not sure why Warwick is not on board with this. This distance learning is affecting these children mentally and socially. It is causing children to be isolated and losing all social skills. A child's academic career is more than just learning about Common Core classes. They learn how to share, to play, meet friends, build relationships, etc. None of these skills can be learned virtually. These children need to be face-to-face and learn everyday skills. We should have a choice of how our children grow, and right now we do not, and it's very disappointing. I am hoping we can at least try to get these children back into school. My next comment is from Bethany Skinner. Have you ever had 7 different projects for work going at once, with 7 different bosses, with 7 different expectations and deadlines, with upwards of 21, 3 a day from each teacher, emails a day with assignments and details, with 7 different ways of submitting work, and attend 14 online meetings a week, all while having ADHD and being 15. Then you don't understand the project and your boss doesn't show up for meetings, all while you are working and living in the same spot for 10 months and you are only 15 and have ADHD. Then you think you're on task because your boss hasn't updated the project page in Aspen for 3 weeks, only to find out that you are failing at your job. You're only 15 with ADHD and have no idea where to even restart, so you decided it's not worth it. Then your parents email the school because you have a 504 and your bosses are not sending a weekly agenda or updating Aspen, and you are blamed by your boss that you are not doing the work. But you are 15 with ADHD and a 504 that clearly states you need to be checked on when there are multiple steps. Then you start to give up. You are unmotivated because you feel that no matter how hard you try, isn't enough. You sleep all day, you have no schedule, you have no purpose to get up. You stop checking your email. You can't leave your house. You're home alone all day because both your parents are essential workers. You have lost almost all of your independence and so many more emotions. Then the committee responsible for your best interest only sees one side of the pandemic. Can't make a solid decision all while you are crumbling mentally. 10 months is far too long for teenagers to be living like this. Let parents determine what they feel is safest for their own children. Bethany Skinner. This is from Amy Whalen. I am writing to advise you to have all grades full in person returning to school starting ASAP. These kids cannot make it like this. It is unacceptable. They don't deserve this. If there are parents who want to keep their kids home, let them. Let teachers who cannot return for medical or personal reasons be DL teachers for them from home. Let our kids have the education they deserve. I feel like it is not even real life begging for my kids to have a proper public school education. It is actually sickening. I understand the air purifiers are in place. Then what is the holdup? Also, if sports can happen at the high school level, so can classes. There are always excuses, but never solid ideas. At least none suggested by parents have been used. This has gone on long enough. Enough is enough. Amy Whalen, parent of a 1st grader and an 11th grader who are not getting what they need for an education. This is from Nancy Krause. These kids need to be in school, both elementary and secondary students, period, end of story. The debates need to stop. The delays need to stop. The excuses need to stop. Enough is enough. The last email was a bit more measured, but I can't be measured any longer. My patience is gone. It is heartbreaking to watch my children struggle every single day. I cannot put into words how distance learning is affecting all three of my children, not only two fifth graders, one with autism and one with profound ADHD, but now also my 15-year-old daughter. She hasn't stepped foot in her school since March, almost a full year. This committee's policies have turned a well-adjusted, high honor roll student, very active athlete into someone who now rarely leaves her room. At first, she handled this in stride, but it's now taking a very real toll on her as well. I know she is not the only one. I fear for the ones who were already struggling with issues before this, which have only been compounded many times over. There's a reason why admissions to Bradley Hospital are skyrocketing. It is absolutely criminal what the inaction of the committee members is doing to our children, academically, socially, and emotionally. State health official wants the kids back. Dr. Fauci says kids should go back. My pediatrician told me there's no reason why they should not be in school. So unless you've been to medical school, do your job. Listen to the experts and get these kids back to school. Anything else is an abject failure, not only for you as committee members, but as members of this community. Get it done. This is from L. Ethier. My child, who is in a contained IES classroom, has been regressing since he was forced to begin distance learning again. My child, who is in this IES classroom, suffers from persistent depressive disorder and disruptive mood dysregulation disorder, on top of other mental health disorders. Due to your fear, my son's depression has increased. It has increased because he is losing valuable in-person time with a group of specialized teachers and behavioral health professionals. His depression has increased because of the increased screen time. Yes, too much screen time can cause depression in children. Are you aware of this? I am. You know why I'm aware of this? Because my child has been an inpatient at Bradley Hospital in the past. Do you know what I learned going to multiple therapists and psychologists appointments weekly while he was inpatient at Bradley Hospital? That increased screen time causes depression in children, and here you are shoving it down our children's throats. Not one committee member except Mr. Testa is qualified to sit on the school committee. None of you except Mr. Testa have children. None of you have any special qualifications that should allow you to make any educational decisions for my child or any child for that matter. Where is the education that my child has the right to receive? My child has not received a proper education since March 2020, and that falls on all of you. All children, special education and non-special education alike, need to be back in person 4 days a week. This is from Melissa DiPetrillo. My son is a kindergarten student at Greenwood School. I strongly feel we need to reopen in-person learning as soon as possible for the development of our city's children. The school has taken precautions and has safety criteria in place to protect students and teachers from transmissions of the virus. Communication has been poor in regards to timeline and execution of plans being made for our children. Working parents need to have fair notice and set expectations in place for an official return to in-person learning date. The state remains open, yet our schools have been forced back to a distance learning model for whose benefit? Not the students, not the teachers. I ask that a clear message be received that parents wish to send their children back to school. If possible, a 4-day school week would be preferable. At minimum, we need to return to at least the hybrid model. We need to return students to normal routine and structure. This is from Brian Morse. Elementary students need to be back in school. This model does not work for that group. I am witnessing my children suffer emotionally and academically, struggling with distance learning. The district spent a considerable amount of money on ventilation. Justify why all that money was spent. I can see the frustration and sadness in the students in my children's classrooms while assisting my kids in meetings. I have witnessed teachers asking students to stop jumping on beds, stop playing in their bedrooms, while the teachers make every attempt to get through a lesson. The students suffering the most are many of the students with relatives or grandparents trying to help them get through these meetings. Most students in this district have working parents, forcing these students be home with elderly grandparents or relatives. I can't imagine what is happening in other households in the Warwick School District. How are divorced parents dealing with this? How are single parent households dealing with this? The inconsistencies in homes is creating a disadvantage to most Warwick students. The Warwick School Committee created an environment of learning that conflicts with every student succeeds at. How do you expect these students to compete academically with students in the state that have been in school full-time throughout the year? Over 70% of parents in this district that want their students back in school give us that option. The survey showed that parents want their kids back. I still can't understand why this is not happening. Everything has been done to make the environment safe for learning. Please stop looking for excuses to hold off on the return to full in-person learning. The school committee has a responsibility to ensure that the students in this district are provided with high academic standards that will prepare them to succeed in college and careers. Please do what you can to correct the mistakes of the first half of this school year and get these students back for in-person learning. Comments from Laurie Mcgowan. My son needs to be back in school. He thrives when he is in school in person. I have a newborn at home and I was considering not sending him back because of this, but I am so thankful that I sent him. I feel like the education he gets on DL days is a lot of busy work and not enough learning. He said, I do not like those distance learning. I want in person. I want to see my friends. Please send my child back 4 days a week. It's not fair that his cousin who lives in North Kingston has been going 5 days a week since September and he had barely gone. Kids need to be in school. This is from Kim Gorton. Dear school committee members, I have a 4th grader at Holloman Elementary, and so you are aware of frontline work in the medical field. I am well aware of the risks. With that being said, I want my child back in school. The air purifiers are in and precautions are taken, so there is no reason why these kids are not in school. I own a home in Warwick and pay my taxes. I expect my child to get an education that is sufficient, not this online stuff. These kids deserve a proper education. This is from Tara Sorella. It's time. It's scary for all involved. Our city has been given all the tools they need to step foot into the scary world. This virus is here to stay and we need to learn to be safe and live with it. We are at almost one entire school year of distance learning. It is no longer acceptable on any level. Start making decisions based on our children's education. Please, beyond asking and begging, just finally ready to demand. This is from Henry Whitford. Good evening. We find ourselves still waiting to allow our children the security and knowledge that comes with in-person schooling. We have sacrificed our well-being to teach our children for months on end. We have watched the implementation of a hybrid plan, offering 2 days of in-class learning per week. We also transported our children and still taught them 3 days per week. 70% of parents polled support in-person instruction in light of circumstances and known risks. Education is the foundation these children are being deprived of. Is it fair that elected officials are keeping this from them? Distance learning lacks consistency, accountability, equity, and fails to promote social emotional growth. It is time for a yes vote. 4 days in person gives the consistency and experience these kids deserve, yet have not had for over 9 months. Let's make this a happy new year. This is from Angeline Brown. I would like to implore the school committee members to approve a 4-day return for K through 5. My 2nd grader is suffering irreparable damage, especially for reading. He received a 1 across the board in reading for the first semester of 2020. A 1 is not even approaching the standard. He has never received a 1 prior to this year. Distance learning is not working. According to his teacher, over half of his class is receiving Title I support this year, which she has not seen previously. By having these kids continue distance learning will cause undue suffering for years to come. We have installed all necessary safety measures, and our officials have confirmed stable pods with these safety measures in place provide the safest environment possible for learning. Get these kids back into a classroom. This is from Bethany Skinner. Have you ever watched a 15-year-old that looks like a man cry because he wants to be back in school? I have, and it's heartbreaking. I'm watching my child crumble because the Warwick schools cannot make a decision. He's crying because he feels unmotivated, because he can't keep up with DL no matter how hard he tries, because he doesn't feel connected with his teachers and peers, because he's lonely, overwhelmed, and sad. He's afraid he won't get into college because he's craving normalcy. If this pandemic has taught me anything, is that everyone has a right to their own opinion as to what is best for you and your family. Warwick Schools is not giving my student a choice in what is best for him during a pandemic. His mental health was suffering because of you. His 504 is not being met. He's failing because he needs a real time with teachers. I get it, we all have fears, but right now my biggest fear is that you are setting my son up for failure. I don't want to see your article so that the kids will be okay, because what I see on a daily basis with my 15-year-old is I'm not really sure your article is correct. Get all the children in Warwick back in school. Stop letting your fear dictate the needs for the children in Warwick. If kids can play school sports, then my non-athletes should be able to go back to school and feel normal too. This is from Sarah Salisbury. I am writing again to ask you to get these kids back in school. I feel that I should not even have to be writing this email, as it should just be happening at this point, as we are almost a year into this. Distance learning should and cannot be the new normal. My children are 5 and 7, a kindergartner in the SES program and a first grader with autism in the co-taught environment. These kids had just started progressing and getting back into a routine. My daughter has been damaged and delayed by what has gone on. My son's behavior and frustration is growing daily. This is absolutely ridiculous. In my children's schools, there was 1 case per school that I was aware of. There was no reason to close the schools, and there are other districts that remained open since September 14th. We have already had our children's education compromised by the actions of this committee, and it cannot continue. There was no reason that a return date was not selected after the holiday break. These children need full in-person learning, and they need it now. There is not even a reason to have Mondays as DL days. Have the staff clean on the weekend or in the evening. My daughter's progress report brought tears to my eyes, as many of her goals are not even being able to be assessed due to the distance learning. Also, the comments have been that she was starting to improve with the 4-day return. This cannot go on, and I am basically begging you to stop this and provide the education that these kids deserve. And I also support parents' choice to keep their child home if they see fit. There is a vaccine, proper channels are in place for distancing, the air purifiers are in. It's time. It's from Shana Walsh. As a Warwick resident, I want to stress the importance of sending our K-5 students back to in-person learning 4 days a week. I'm a single mother as well as an elementary teacher in another district. I teach in person 5 days a week. My children also need to be granted the same opportunity as students in other districts. They are missing vital in-person learning. They need their schools' structured days. Warwick schools need to figure out the logistics on how to make this happen, just as my district did back in September. I have full faith in our teachers and principals and trust that they can problem solve this situation and make it work. This is from Amy Vadney. Suggestion: other districts who have had their students in school since September have reorganized busing to get secondary kids home for lunch. This way, they all leave with a lunch in hand, then do a virtual or on your own learning thereafter. As a teacher, I am not comfortable eating lunch with students, nor would I want to stand in doorway eating. Contractually, we are given a 21-minute lunch break. This is from Jessica Greenberg. I have heard teachers will be eating lunch with small groups of students. I am not going to be in a room of unmasked students. It is not acceptable to ask this of anyone. I hope there's a safe plan for lunch prior to our return. This is from Michael DeLauro. Nobody loves their children as much as I do. So if there was a real threat, I would be leading the charge with safety. We all know that's not what's going on. We had time and resources to figure out who was at risk and accommodate them with sick leave and make do with what we have. The mental health of the future is #1 priority. Kids are playing video games at alarming rates. Indoor activities are closed, and people with small houses or jobs to go to have had enough watching their kids completely out of norm. I would never hold back the future of a nation for my personal safety. Find people that will teach and end this now. If people are scared and want to live in fear, they can stay home and do what they wish. The hypocrisy from some of these people that go strictly by party lines is nauseating. And I fear when the people see the real cost of all these lockdowns, it will lead to lots of civil unrest. I'm here to help if needed. This is from Anne Marie Gupton. Good evening, school committee and administration. I'm a special education teacher with Warwick Schools. I would like to ask 2 things. The first is to please consider the high positivity rate of COVID in Rhode Island when you decide on a 4-day in-person return date. The second is to please give teachers at least a week in between when you vote in the return date. Special education teachers especially need that time to revise schedules. I trust you will do what is best for our students. This is from Charlene Barlow. My son is a freshman at Pilgrim, and I am extremely concerned about his mental health since he's been forced to distance learn since last March. These kids need to be back in school and have a routine. They need a reason to get out of bed in the morning. My son also plays sports and needs high school sports to start as soon as possible. These kids cannot just sit home in front of a computer all day. Enough is enough. Other cities and towns are making it work, and Warwick needs to step up and do the right thing. Our kids' lives and mental well-being depend on it. This is from Amy. It is amazing to me that, Mr. Tester aside, nobody on this committee has children. You have no idea what you have done to the children in this city. Trying to speak to sensibility seems to be going nowhere, so I will be blunt. Not a single one of you are health experts. A higher governing body full of them has already made the call that children are safe in the classroom. Your literal job description is to provide the best education possible to these students. It is not to contradict the Department of Health with your staggering non-expertise. You cater your plan to their recommendations and move on to educational priorities. You are failing with distance learning miserably. Do your job and get these kids back in person. This is from David Rush. I look forward to my children returning to school next week per the governor's recommendations and keeping in line with other school districts. I am being told the schools have all the equipment and funding needed for a safe return. I would like Warwick to improve their communication to the parents regarding return dates and rationale for decision-making in the event that there will not be a return. I, like many other parents, have been extremely patient. I feel that patience is being taken advantage of at this point, as I see other school districts light years ahead in their operations, communications, and teachings during what is now the new normal. It's time to improve, please, Warwick. This is from Talia Powers. I am a concerned educator and parent of 2 elementary age students. It has been a daily struggle to get our 2 daughters to sit in front of their Chromebooks and do work. It is not only developmentally inappropriate for young students to learn this way, but even worse, they are missing out on the important social and emotional relationships with peers and teachers. Distance learning does not and cannot take the place of in-person instruction. Research has shown most students have fallen behind where they would have been if they stayed in their classrooms. Our children have not had a full week of school since March 2020. That is unacceptable. Young children are missing out on the foundational concepts that are taught in early education. These concepts can only be taught in person, and these concepts prepare our children for a lifetime of learning. Districts in Rhode Island have opened their school buildings, and it has been done safely. Give families the right to choose to send their children to school. This is from Megan McCamish. My name is Megan McCamish, and I am a senior at Tollgate High School. I can say this for almost all students. Online school is tearing us apart in terms of mental health and physical health. I have not been in the classroom since March, while most other schools had the chance to get back in the classroom. To me, that is completely unfair and a disgrace. And for sports, I'm a 3-sport athlete, and right now sports are the only thing keeping me going. The rest of the athletic teams and I need sports right now more than ever. Please put yourselves in the students' shoes before making your decisions. This is from Wendy Guglielmetti. I am writing to you this evening because I've had enough of the way that you have behave at these virtual school committee meetings. Your treatment event, this is Ms. Backus and Mr. Tester, your treatment of anyone who disagrees with you or has a different opinion is atrocious. Specifically, I am sick and tired of the way that you speak to your fellow committee member, Mr. Cornell. You snap at him, cut him off, and disrespect him. He was elected like both of you. While you two are busy sucking up to the superintendent, he puts the students, teachers, and everyone else in the school first. I want to thank Mr. Cornell for all his hard work and dedication. Also, he was the only one of you who had the guts to vote against renewing the superintendent's contract, which is probably the reason that Mr. Thornton continues to be rude to him. I have heard many parents and community members who wanted Mr. Thornton gone. I can't believe you voted to keep him. You two just keep running your 3-ring circus. Another thing, I don't like this 350-word limit thing. Whose stupid idea was that? I sent this letter in December and you didn't read it because apparently it was 14 minutes late. Well, it is on time now and I want it read. Oh, and Mr. Tester, stop chewing your gum right into the camera. It is unprofessional and gross. You think you're so smart and better than Mr. Cornell and everyone else. You are not. And you are probably working from home and don't care about anyone who has to be in the schools. At least Mr. Thornton did one thing right and closed the schools. You would still be trying to put everyone in. I remember when you wanted to open schools without nurses. You are disgraceful and should resign and take Ms. Backus with you. It's from Kerry Rooney. A year and a half ago, I stood before you as our amazing city was facing a crisis. Our school committee and city council could not initially unite. Therefore, our children were facing a devastating solution with the elimination of all sports. I watched our children rise up, speak up, and realize how important and strong their voices were. The passion they had to play gave them purpose. Your passing of school sports allowed my son, a Pilgrim 2020 graduate, to earn a Pilgrim Physical Health Education Scholarship and the opportunity to run on the Assumption University cross-country and track team. Now here we are facing another crisis, a crisis none of us could ever imagine. As an educator myself, I have seen that passion and purpose our children had slowly fade from their faces. The social emotional toll this pandemic has taken on our children deeply concerns me. We must give our children some sense of normalcy. When the pandemic hit, I could see the Pilgrim athletes outside on the baseball field practicing, the track team running, the soccer players distancing themselves while doing drills, all without a coach and without a season. They wanted to play. They had a purpose. The light to this very long and dark tunnel is slowly approaching. We have told our children nothing bad lasts forever. I promised you 18 months ago that I would never stop fighting for our schools and city, even when my children have moved on from Warwick schools. You also made a promise. You promised to do what was the best interest of our children. I am asking you tonight to please give our children that passion and purpose they deserve by passing a winter sports season, which has already been approved by the state. Let's do what is right for our children. It's from Catherine Day. As a parent of an elementary school student, I am in support of a return to 4-day in-person learning for elementary schools, with an option for a distance learning for families not comfortable or unable to open their circle to risk. As far as my child's school is concerned, I feel the school has handled and prepared as best as could be done for most situations regarding the pandemic. Even if it were to mean completely closing our family circle, I feel the benefits outweigh the risk for our family. I do feel families should have the option. This is from Jessica V. Please strongly consider bringing these poor children back into the classroom. My children, 4th and 8th graders, are struggling socially, mentally, and are falling behind in their academics. My 8th grader needs to be in school before she goes to high school in the fall. My children are sick of staring at a screen and often find themselves spacing and daydreaming from staring at the same screen day after day. If private schools can operate, why can't public schools do the same? This is from Pat Burton. Welcome back and a happy and healthy new year to all. In regard to the discussion of sports starting up, can I just say this is absurd? Yes, I have children and they are missing it, but it is not a necessity and it puts many at risk even with mask wearing. It is so hard not to be in close contact with many sports, and then you're adding in other teams, just not worth the risk. Gives them time to practice on their own or with family members. As far as bringing back middle high school and the idea that you have students placed in pods is also unsafe, since you now have teachers being the cross-contaminators. These are not safe pods, nor should they be exposed in this manner. Do not make rash decisions just because you are being pressured. Everyone's life matters. Kids are resilient. Just as there are those who don't do well in person, there are those who don't do well distance learning. That doesn't mean learning isn't taking place. There are still too many unknowns, and now with the winter weather and numbers rising, distance learning should remain for the health and safety of everyone. This is from Sarah Neal. I'm writing what feels like my 100th comment letter begging the school committee to bring out our students back to in-person school. As I understand it, the recommendation from the administration will be for elementary school students to attend in-person instruction 4 days a week, and middle and high school students will finally get the opportunity to attend school in person under the hybrid model. You cannot let another meeting pass without finally deciding on a return date. I've said multiple times you are out of excuses, but honestly, to date, your concerns have been addressed. Schools' filtration systems are out of date. HEPA filters have been installed, expensive ones at that. Kids won't wear masks for hours, will they? Yes, they will and do. Worried about getting a test and results quickly? Testing is incredibly easy to schedule, and the longest I've had to wait for test results in the last 2 weeks is 48 hours. Short of getting everyone vaccinated, this is as safe as it's going to get, and I can tell you from experience that this is enough. How? I've been sending my kids to distance learn from a daycare, and I was recently informed a close contact of theirs at school tested positive for COVID-19. I had them tested 5 days later per Department of Health guidance, and they both tested negative. This is consistent with other exposures. My oldest was a close contact of a classmate before the holidays, but she never developed symptoms from that potential exposure either. At some point, you have to trust the systems that have been set up by actual medical experts will work, and I have borne witness to that. Not to mention the 70% or so of elementary school parents who want an in-person return to school. Your decision here should be crystal clear, and that's to bring these kids back. Our children deserve it. Okay, that's the 30-minute mark.
Thank you, Ms. Boning. At this time, those public comments will be put back in the file, and they will be brought back out for next Tuesday evening. And hopefully we'll get through the rest of them then, unless you don't want them read, because I think that for the most part, I'm getting feedback. I think that for the most part, we will make people relatively happy tonight. That is our goal. And so we're going to continue the meeting. New business, number 1, discussion action, discipline hearing, classified employee A. Superintendent. Discussion action, discipline hearing, classified employee A. Superintendent.
Madam Chair, if we could table that item, please.
Pardon? You want to table it?
Madam Chair, if we could table that item, please.
1G is tabled. Number 2, discussion action, reopening of schools. A, Welk.
Madam
Madam
Chair,
Chair, if I could start, Ms. Danbrook. Madam Chair, we are here tonight to provide the school committee with our reopening schedule. I would tell you, as Ms. Danbrook will show you, we are ready to open. We truly are. A majority of the parents, as you know, want to come back. We have the staffing plan. We have the PPE. We have installed 1,406 air purifiers in all of our schools. We've created a visual schedule in January, which you will see, where we're confident we can bring all students and staff back safely. So with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Danbrook and Mr. McCaffrey to show you exactly what we want to do in the month of January. Ms. Danbrook, thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. So Madam Chair, members of the school committee and members of the community, we have a plan in place for each program and with reopening dates for each of the programs. So Dr. Taylor? Okay, I'm going to ask Dr. Conley and Ms. Martin to talk about Welk.
Good evening, everyone. The plan for the Warwick Early Learning Center is to continue to provide education primarily for students with disabilities. We have gen ed peers that participate as well. As with the rest of the district, Monday will continue to be a distance learning day for all students in all classes. The special education classrooms that were previously open initially at Drum Rock and then moved back to Welk in November, December will reopen on January 13th. We will be extending the school day to a full day from 8:55 to 3:05. And on the 13th, we are not yet able to provide transportation, but transportation will begin approximately a week later on January 19th. The integrated classrooms, these are classrooms that have not yet been opened this school year, will reopen on a half-day hybrid schedule. And essentially the way that's going to work is we have 2 groups of students that participate in this portion of Welk, 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. So 3-year-olds will come in person 2 mornings a week. 4-year-olds will come in person 2 mornings a week, and whoever did not have the in-person instruction that morning will have distance learning that afternoon. That will begin on January 19th, and transportation will be provided. You can see here the calendar with the list of the dates for the special ed classrooms opening and then the integrated classrooms opening.
Julie Martin, do you have anything to add to that and your perspective of how it's worked in the past and how you're ready to open for the future?
Sure. So thank you for having me tonight, Madam Chair, and the fellow school committee members. I think this is a solid plan that we have going forward. bringing our full day students back and extending their day to a full day is something that we have wanted to do. And most importantly, getting our integrated students back as well. Ultimately, it comes down just to making sure we have enough staff to safely facilitate our programs. And right now it looks as though with the help of HR and all of their great work that we'll be able to do that. So I'm confident that we'll be able to put this plan in action.
Thank
That's
you.
it.
Mr. McCaffrey?
Madam Chair, members of the Warwick School Committee, the Warwick Area Career and Technical Center, we're looking to open it for January 13th. There'll be no busing provided at the district level at this time. Monday will still be classified as anytime learning and distance learning for the students who are participating in our exploratory program. Students will attend in person for 4 days a week. With me is Mr. Kane, who is the director of the school, who can share some more insight onto how he plans to reopen.
I'm very confident. I'd like to thank you all for inviting me here. I'm very confident with reopening. As you know, we've been open for a good part of the year. Our students are hands-on. We've identified different exits and entrances so students do not come into contact with each other as much as possible. Students do eat within the program rooms. We have designated lavatory times. So every effort's really been made to keep the students separate from other students and programs. And so far it's going pretty well. I have to thank the custodial staff and the nursing staff in particular, and the secretaries for the outstanding work, because it's definitely a task. But we're confident. We've done well before this, and we'll continue to do well.
Dr. Conley?
Yes, thank you, Director Danbrook. So this is specific, this next slide is specific to the K through 12 and transition classrooms that were previously open at VETS. So as before, Mondays will continue to be a distance learning day for all students. The elementary students in the special education classrooms that were previously open, those are the alternate assessment students, the students in the intensive academic special education program, and the IES and SES students. Many of these students did return to school in September at VETS and then were moved back into their home schools. Those classrooms will reopen at their home schools for 4 days a week of in-person instruction starting on January 13th, same as we had done before. Transportation will be provided beginning on January 19th, but I do need to note that transportation will only be provided for students that have it in their IEP. If you have any questions about that as a parent, certainly reach out to your special education case manager and look at the IEP to see if you have transportation. For the most part, we shouldn't have a lot of changes for these students. We're just reopening the classrooms back at the home schools. The middle and high school students who were at VETS have now been moved back into their home schools. These are the same programs, and they will reopen at their home schools on January 13th. And as previously stated, transportation will only be provided for students that have it in their IEP, and that will begin on January 19th. And here you can see the date for the special education K through 12, including transition classrooms reopening.
And Dr. Conley, I'd also like to add that the move has been done. So all of the classroom materials were moved from VETS to the middle schools and to the high schools. So teachers are beginning to unpack and set up their classrooms.
Correct. And the remaining students with IEPs, these are the students in co-taught classrooms across the districts, as well as students who get resource services, will follow the elementary or secondary schedule that's being presented now.
Thank you. So as you know, parents were given a survey, and over 70% of the parents asked for their children to return in person 4 days a week. So we did give parents a choice, either to return in person 4 days a week or to continue with distance learning 4 days a week. Principals, if you approve this plan tonight, principals will be confirming the decision that the parents made. It's a commitment for the semester. Also, busing will be available in the near future. There's no busing currently, but we're hoping sometime in February, busing will be available for those who are eligible to take the bus. Providing 4 days of learning is very important. In order to cover the grade level standards and to prepare students for the next grade and to keep students engaged, we're finding that the distance learning isn't engaging students as much as they should be. Mondays will still be anytime learning. There is a Google Meet, a morning meeting every Monday morning, and then for the rest of Monday days is anytime learning. So the calendar has K and 1 starting on January 19th, grades 2 and 3 starting on January 20th, and grades 4 and 5 on January 21st. So I think this plan will give students much more opportunities for more instructional time and more learning time and just more social interactions, which they need. I also have, sorry, before I go on, I also have Dr. Schweitzer and Ron Celio, and I would like them to share their perspectives on how hybrid learning went in person, and also if they think they're prepared to do the 4-day in person. Start with maybe Mr. Celio.
Assistant to Superintendent Danbrook, I echo your concern and your, the goal to bring students back, 4-day full in person. While the in-person hybrid model that we had, while it did provide access to school, the pacing, there were pacing issues that we saw and were felt. Basically it was, students were taking, because of the circumstances, students, were completing in, 2 weeks what they would normally complete in 1. And I feel that with this new model, with your model, with what you're proposing tonight, that would greatly increase the pacing and allow us to cover, or allow teachers to cover and students to acquire much more of the curriculum.
Thank you. Dr. Schweitzer?
Sure. Thank you very much for having me here this evening. I think one of the most important pieces was what we learned from the hybrid experience when we talk about our obvious priorities of safety, both physical and emotional. We learned about the impact of a staggered start, making sure we had proper cleaning protocols in place, the careful scheduling involved in both lunch and recess and things like bathroom breaks. I'd like to reiterate what Mr. Kane said in our appreciation for the hard work that the custodial staff and the nurses are doing, the medical staff. It takes a tremendous amount of effort, but it is a community effort. Everyone from admin to teachers and staff and families working together. The hybrid experience was successful. We learned how to deal with any issues that came up. And most importantly, I think we saw the impact of the emotional piece to this and how students thrived in the building underneath the safety protocols that we put in place. So I think that it is in the best interest of students to send them back 4 days a week. And I think it's a great plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Schweitzer. I also want to add that we do have a lot of PPE in the buildings. We recently provided teachers with plexiglass for their desks, and also if they're taking small groups, they can separate themselves from the students and students from one another. We will be receiving more plexiglass for reading specialists and math interventionists as well, so when they work in small groups. So health and safety is a priority.
Madam Chair, members of the school committee, middle schools were looking to open up on January 19th. We've had the opportunity to work with a committee of 20 teachers, administrators, to put together our initial plan. Since that time, we've reviewed the plans of other districts. We've studied what their best practices are. when developing our plans for the middle school as well as the high school. There will be no busing provided by the district at this time. Secondary students will be assigned a Tuesday, Thursday, or a Wednesday, Friday in person, and then 2 days at home. So they'll have 4 days of instruction, and then Monday will be anytime learning for all grades 6 through 12. With me today is Mr. Adam Haywood, who's the principal of Warwick Veterans. Before he shares some of his insight into the reopening, I would say that we're planning an orientation day for both the 6th grade and the 9th grade starting on the 19th. Mr. Haywood, would you like to add some to this discussion?
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for having me tonight. I just want to reassure everyone that everything we do will be grounded in safety. The health and safety of our school community will be our top priority. I have a lot of experience with this since I was here with the special ed programming, so I'm hoping to bring that experience to the reopening of Veterans Middle School. Any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer. No.
Moving on to the high school level, there'll be no busing provided at the district level at this time. Again, students will be assigned a Tuesday, Thursday, or a Wednesday, Friday in person, as well as distance learning on the opposite days. And Monday will be anytime learning. Again, we've had the opportunity to spend an awful lot of time reviewing what other districts are doing, learning what their best practices are, what their protocols are that have been effective. We've worked closely with Mr. Oliver's in his department, learning what we can and can't do operationally as a result of the necessary cleaning that needs to take place. I think we have a solid plan, and we should have no problem keeping our students and our faculty safe. With me this evening is Ms. Calori from Tollgate, the principal of Tollgate. Ms. Calori, can you share your input into this matter?
Certainly. Good evening, Madam Chair and School Committee. Thank you for having me here tonight. Along with Mr. Oliver and my leadership team, we've taken a very strong look at what we think is feasible and safe for our students, faculty, right down to our custodians. So some of the things that we have put in place is that there will be 4 separate entrances and 4 separate exits at the beginning and the end of the day. Our hallways are labeled one way. Our stairwells are labeled one way, so there's not cross-contamination. We have, as Mr. McCaffrey said, split the students in half, so a Tuesday, Thursday, and a Wednesday, Friday. Our rooms have already been set up so that students will be socially distanced from each other, and it will be easier for custodians to clean and get in and out. We have also had long conversations with music and PE and different ways that they can address their curriculum without causing any cross-contamination or health issues. We've taken a long look at that, and we know that there will be tweaks as we go, as there should be, because we learn something new every day of what works best and what doesn't. But we are prepared to open in a hybrid model.
Also, we have the necessary PPE available for staff. We have plexiglass that's available that we've provided teachers through the ADA process that we've completed today at this point. High school sports have tentative start has been determined by the Rhode Island Scholastic League. They have started January 4th. We're looking with your approval to start on January 8th. Our athletes would follow the guidelines established by the Rhode Island Interscholastic League. Here this evening is Mr. Ricks, who is our athletic director. Mr. Ricks, do you have anything to share about the reopening of athletics?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. McCaffrey. Good evening, Madam Chair and fellow school committee members. I just wanted to give you a quick update. As Mr. McCaffrey had noted, 30 other Rhode Island high schools began practicing on January the 4th. And I have been in touch with a bunch of my colleagues, fellow ADs, to see if they have run into any problems while it's still in its infancy of return. There haven't been any yet. I do want to say that we have the RIAL, in conjunction with the Department of Health, has provided a 25-page guidelines for safety and return to sport It even gets down to very specifics as to what the protocols and what needs to take place with each specific sport that is offered this winter. I did meet earlier this week with Director McCaffrey and Director Oliver to go over all our cleaning and safety protocols in between use of the different facilities. And I feel pretty confident that we'll be able to put our athletes in the best possible position to keep them healthy and able to participate in their sports. If you have any question, I'd be happy to answer.
And at this time, we're looking to open up high school athletics only.
Thank you, Mr. McCaffrey. Question for Mr. Ricks. What sports other than hockey will be starting tomorrow?
With your permission, tomorrow we will begin, as you noted, boys and girls ice hockey. We're also offering boys and girls basketball, high school, as Mr. McCaffrey said, high school only. We're also offering track and field, swim, and gymnastics.
Thank you. Does anybody on the committee have any questions?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Cornell?
So I think I'm on board for the special education in the elementary. We did already technically approve the elementary. It's just the start date that we have to decide on. But I have a question regarding the middle school and high school though. So in middle and high school, which is different than elementary, in that the students don't have just one classroom or one teacher. They have multiple teachers. So how's it going to work with different students going to different classrooms?
Can I
Sure, go ahead, Ms. Calori.
So the tentative schedule that we have set up, Mr. Cornell, leaves 10 minutes in between each period. So that gives ample time for each classroom to be cleaned. So they will move from classroom to classroom, but every classroom and including the gym floor will be cleaned in between every class.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Adams.
I was going
Mr.
to.
Adams.
So I guess I have just general questions that I spoke with superintendent earlier, but also I just want to get the information out there if Dr. Thornton does not mind. In terms of plexiglass, because Mr. McCaffrey had mentioned it earlier, that has been brought up to in the past couple of days. People who wanted to get plexiglass and didn't know how. So how would they go about requesting getting plexiglass?
The staff members that we dealt with today were regarding ADA accommodations that they had requested through human resources, and when looking at the different issues that they may have, we were providing different PPE as needed, whether it's a mask, whether it's a shield, whether it's plexiglass. It was determined through the ADA process that we have established through human resources.
Okay, cool. So if they oh, sorry, you go.
Right. Also, Mr. Adams, we do have a grant that we ordered quite a bit of plexiglass with this grant. So there'll be a lot of plexiglass coming in.
Okay, so then if anyone needs or has the desire to order or to request plexiglass, they would, I'm assuming, email human resources and explain the reason why. Correct?
They could do that, or have their principal contact either myself or Director McCaffrey.
Okay. And I have just three more. Something that has come up a couple times is for the middle and high school, because the second quarter ends at the end of January, if it would make more sense to wait until exams end at the high school level to bring middle and high school back. So what would your response to this be?
Mr. McCaffrey?
The exams start on the 28th of January. I know the superintendent would like to bring everyone back starting the 19th, and it, you know, he's basing it on his professional judgment, and I think the sooner we get the kids back, it would be, it's necessary based upon the input we received from the community today in the letters that have been read. But that's where we're at with when the quarter ends, and also where we're at with the community input, and also that we're ready to go on the 19th.
Okay. Also, in terms of getting ready for the 19th, I don't remember who specifically told me, but the Pilgrim kind of needs more air purifiers, I think, or just the air filtration for the Pilgrim Gym in specifics. Would that be done by the 19th?
Mr. Gothberg, you can speak to that.
Sure. Mr. Oliver is in the process of repairing some HV units in the Pilgrim Gym. I have come up with a purifier that fits into the HV system. So we're going to pilot it at Pilgrim, make sure it works. We're going to do some pre-air quality testing. And then once the unit is in, then we will do some post-install air quality testing and compare and make sure that they are functioning the way they are supposed to. So we should be able to move ahead with using the gyms at that point.
Okay. And then just in the same realm of the air purifiers, the windowless classrooms that were specifically noted at Tollgate, those should be sufficiently installed with air purifiers, correct?
Yeah, all air purifiers are in all schools. There are a couple of rooms. I got an email from Principal Habershaw today. There were 2 social worker rooms that I was not aware of. We will get air purifiers in there. But the interior rooms at both Windman and Tollgate, there are 3 to 4, depending on size of room. And they're all in, they're up and running. I went around today. Everything is working properly. We have not had one unit fail yet. I'm very pleased with them.
All right, awesome. And then you already answered my question on cleaning classrooms, but the last one I have, and Dr. Thornton, you and I spoke on this earlier, is the and it was brought up, I think, in public comment, the idea of middle and high ending at lunchtime with people grabbing the lunches and going home to have DL at the end of the day. What information would you put on that?
Actually, in that, I spoke to Mr. Clory about that earlier this afternoon. Ms. Clory, can you relay what we talked about?
Sure, Mr. McCaffrey can jump in also. Because of the nature of our schedule and the way that it's set up, you would only get in-person learning in the morning. The same people would only get in-person learning, and the same people would get DL in the afternoon. If we keep the schedule the way that we've preliminary set it up, everybody gets in-person learning. There's a problem because of how the schedule is set up and how we have to match up with the Career Center in order for both our students to be serviced.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering my questions. That's all I got.
It would impact the instructional minutes, as Ms. Clory said, for the Career Center, and it may have implications on student certification.
Mr. Testa and then Ms. Cobden, because Mr. Testa has.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think my question would be for Dr. Thornton. We covered this at the last meeting, but parents who are home now, here it is, it looks like we're going back. So, and the transportation is an issue. So I know we kept saying no transportation at this time, which I get, but what's the outlook for transportation, or are you not prepared to get into any detail?
Sure. I can start the response. Mr. Baxter can also jump in as well. As the committee knows, we have a finite number of buses, not the same number we ran last year. Modeling busing going forward, we made elementary the priority. And that's why, we're looking at having elementary busing, but to finally coordinate the new runs and really, have everything locked in, we need that probably, early February timeframe for elementary busing. Keeping in mind, we have to really look at the runs and how we do our pickups, our bus stops. We also did speak with the private schools, the dioceses, on how they bus, how we can work with them to kind of be more efficient. But short answer, we had to really make a decision where we're going to put our fleet that is finite, and we decided elementary. That's why we have current busing in the fall. But we don't have it now because we made that decision to target the elementary. Mr. Baxter, anything I missed?
Well, that was fairly complete. I mean, basically, we're going back to start with a blank slate and reroute based on the limited number of buses. Ideally, we would have needed 96 at our peak. We had 29. We think we might be up to 35. We're scrounging for buses. We're looking at how to make the routes more efficient. We're taking advantage of the school committee approved longer walking distances. Again, as the superintendent mentioned, we're looking at working with and being more efficient with the local private school. So all of the above, and it'll take some time for us. We're hoping to have that done actually fairly shortly as far as the conceptual routing, but then the implementation we have to work with First Student. They have contractual obligations on their side and so on and so forth. So then to roll it out gets us into February, and that's if we, have direction tonight as to which calendar we're going to adopt.
And Dr. Thornton mentioned the 29 buses. That's what our initial cut to transportation was, and then we added 14 back. But because we added them back late, there were no drivers for them. So in a perfect world, we'd have 43 buses if we had drivers for every one. Correct?
That's correct, and it looks like we've gotten 6 of the drivers back, so we're from 29 to 35. But we're still struggling for the remainder. That's correct.
Right, because that will obviously it will be a burden for some, but I don't think that's an obstacle to prevent us from going forward. I think we need to get the kids back in school and recognize the inconvenience potentially for some families. But I think getting the kids in the classroom outweighs that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Testa. Ms. Cobden.
Oh, yes, I just, for Mr. Gothberg, I just wanted to check that all the resource type rooms that are like individual rooms, a lot of them don't have windows. They're almost like larger closets for all the reading specialists and special services all have air purifiers in their rooms now?
I hit every room, and we're going back through elementaries this week. And we'll be hitting the art and music rooms in anticipation of when the itinerant teachers will have that are itinerant now. When they bring the kids in, you just want to be prepared ahead of time. But as far as I know, I have hit everything. If I have not, I ask the principals to let me know. But I'm in and out of schools every day, just double checking, making sure everything is done.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm sure if I could, I just want to commend Mr. Gothberg, Mr. Oliver, and the team installing over 1,400 purifiers with conduit, electrical work, an enormous undertaking, and it was done, really well. I really can't emphasize enough how big a job that was and how well they did. Thank you.
You guys did a great job. You really worked hard. I know that. I saw some of it, and thank you for your dedication to this district. I have one last question with regard to these issues. How will the DL kids, the DL kids 4 days a week, how will they be taught with the new model?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
The DL students will be taught by the classroom teacher 4 days a week.
4 days a week. By either secondary or elementary, is that correct?
4 days a week for elementary. Director McCaffrey?
Yeah, they'll have 2 days of DL and 2 days of in-person. They'll have 4 days total. So they'll be
Some
learning.
Mr. McCaffrey, some parents are choosing not to send their children back.
Yes. Yep. And we're also
4 days DL then?
we'll have 4 days of DL as well.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. I'm sure that alleviates some anxiety on some parents.
Madam Chair, I have one question for Mr. Ricks.
Mr. Chester, go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Ricks, the sports that are running, are
Yes.
those the sports that Rael said could run, or are there more sports running that we just chose not to run?
No, those are the sports that, again, high school, those are the sports that RIAL has approved. Well, it really, they're at the directive of the Department of Health and the governor. So it's the sports they were told could run. So yes, we're not offering wrestling this winter, which we normally would, and we're not offering competitive cheerleading. Both of them were in high risk categories, and it's not, those may be revisited in the spring, but for now, they're not being offered throughout the state.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ricks.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Adams?
I forgot about this one as well, but Mrs. Calori, you had mentioned 10 minutes in between classes to clean them, and I guess this goes to traveling in the hallways as well. Is there going to be some form of procedure for how traveling between hallways is, and then like
No, it's a very good question. It's a very good question, and we thought of that. We have it set up that hallways are one way. Stairwells are one way, which is another reason for the 10 minutes, because it's a big building and you may have to get from one place to another. So yes, the procedures would be set up that there are certain up stairwells, there are certain down stairwells, hallways will only be one way, so that they would not be crossing each other.
Okay. And is there a place for that? Are they going to wait outside the classroom until that class is finished being cleaned, I'm assuming?
Yes, and given the fact that we're in a hybrid model, they should be able to be 6 feet apart outside those classrooms, and they're far enough apart so that they should be able to enter as soon as it's done being cleaned.
Okay. And then Mr. McCaffrey, I guess this would go to you, because I know that Pilgrim especially has that very large cluster over by the language history and where the 2 science wings meet. I'm assuming that's been handled as well.
Yes. 90. You're talking about 95 at Pilgrim?
The one parallel to it.
Okay.
That one's the nightmare.
Yeah. Yes. With the hybrid model, we're looking at approximately 70% of the students wanting in person. Average class contractually is 26. So you're looking at about approximately 18 students. We're going to have class size between 9 and 10 students per class. So we should easily have no problem with students in between periods outside classes, and with half the population, with a smaller population, it should be a lot more less congested in those areas that you're talking about. I know you were a graduate of Pilgrim, so you're very familiar with the areas where it gets crowded. It would be a lot less congested with far less than 50% population at a given time.
Right. And that was before vets went to Pilgrim.
Yeah.
So, all right, that's it for me.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Adams. Mr. Cornell.
So, Dr. Thornton, so what is the situation regarding the vaccination of teachers and staff in the schools?
Mr. Cornell, you're out of order. That is not on the schedule, and we cannot discuss it at this time.
I just thought it would relate because it relates to the opening, because a lot of people would be more like in favor of opening if they
I'm
knew.
sorry, but it's not on the agenda, and therefore, Counselor.
Mr. Cornell, you said your inquiry was with respect to what? I got the vaccines.
Vaccinations.
Yeah, of staff, because a lot of people would be more comfortable with sending their students back if they know the staff is all vaccinated, or is going to be vaccinated sometime soon.
You're in the queue.
Yeah, I would prefer any kind of a lengthy discussion to be on a more specifically advertised advertised agenda item.
Could this be on Tuesday's agenda then, Madam Chair?
Ms. Bonang, would you please put that down for Tuesday's agenda?
Thank you.
Discussion on vaccination. Thank you. Are there any other questions pertaining to that which we have been discussing this evening? There being none, I'm going to take each area of reopening and we'll vote on them. For the first reopening of schools, not A, Welk. I move approval on reopening Welk as charted.
Second.
Dr. Danbrook and Dr. Conley, and Superintendent.
Second.
Discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 The ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you. The next area for reopening, as explained by Mr. McCaffrey and Mr. Kane, Warwick Area Career and Tech Center. I move favorable opinion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you very much. The next matter is letter C, K through 12, special education, self-contained classes, as discussed by Dr. Conley and others. I move favorable action.
Second.
Any discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. Letter D, grades K through 5, reopening. I move favorable action.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay? The ayes have it, 5-0. Letter E, grades 6 and 9, as discussed by Director McCaffrey.
Madam Chair, E is grades 7, 8, 10, 11, 12. Okay.
No, I have, why do I have E as grade 6 and 9? No, grade,
We just
on my agenda, I have E and I have grade 6 and 9.
Yeah.
And that's because they're going back first before anybody else.
Right.
To become accustomed to the building. Is that
Yes, like an orientation.
Orientation day, the first day would be an orientation day for the students.
Right. Does everybody follow that?
Right, but I think Mr. Tess is saying that on our agenda it says D, not E.
I'm sorry. I have D as, I don't know how we have different agendas, but I have D as grades K through 5, E as grades 6 through 9. So we voted for grades 6 through 5. That was 5-0.
Voted K through 5. The next one up is grades 6 and 9.
6 and 9 for the introduction to the school and how it runs for the first 2 days. All in, I move approval.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. 5-0. And then finally, I have letter F, grades 7, 8, 10, 11, and 12 to go back under the hybrid model, 2 days in school, 2 days distance learning. I move favorable action on this.
Second.
Discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. Finally, we listened to a discussion about the start of high school sports. The director of school sports and athletics, Mr. Rex would like us to start tomorrow, Friday, January the 8th, with practice for our student athletes. I move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays? The ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you very much. Future meetings, letter H, the monthly school committee meeting will be Tuesday, January 12th, and will start at 7 p.m.
Madam Chair, is that start time correct? I just want to make sure.
The start time for the actual
Open session.
meeting,
Thank you.
I'm going to get to that. It starts at 7 p.m. However, the elections of chair, vice chair, and clerk will be held at 5:30 p.m. and will be on the public screen. That will be done at 5:30, and we will go from that process into executive session for business that is not open to the public. Are there any other questions?
So Madam Chair, just to clarify, the meeting technically starts 5:30. We're in open session for election of officers, then into executive, and we'll be back in public at 7 p.m. Gotcha. Thank you.
Correct. Thank you, Mr. Testa. Thank you, everyone. Godspeed. Have a good weekend.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.